We all read the newspapers. We all see the headlines each day, and there's been a flood of somewhat bad news that has been coming out both nationally and the state papers and news outlets here for the last several months. The Pew Center on the States has talked about some of this out of Washington, D.C., and they refer to it in shorthand as bills coming due. We have a rising prison population that's taking more and more of state budgets, not only in Kentucky but nationally. Rising unmet pension obligations, an aging infrastructure, an increasing debt. We have an aging population that is going to require more spending by the government for Social Security and Medicare. And the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, has produced a number of reports on this. The last director of the GAO, David Walker, was on a speaking tour for several months going around the country talking about the country's fiscal situation, that if you project out into, say, out to 2020, out to 2040, it will be increasingly difficult for the federal government to meet many of its spending promises and obligations. They talk about the large and growing structural deficit, an aging population, rising healthcare costs. We have rising demands of this war on terror. And so a lot of the long-term financial projections don't look good. So what's it mean for Kentucky? How does it affect us? Well, just almost a third of the money that we spend in Kentucky, almost a third, comes from the federal government. So to the extent that the federal government is limited in the future in the amount of money it has available, it will have a fundamental effect on us. Now, it's not just us, of course. We do have our budgetary problems in Kentucky, but all levels of government, state and local, as well as federal, are going to be challenged. And that's why we're here today. We can focus on these challenges, we have to, but we really have to focus on the opportunities and search out those opportunities. And I think that there are really 3 points that I want to make here. The first is, and this ties into our conference, that we have to be strategic. We have to search out and pursue high leverage options that are going to make a big difference, but don't cost a lot of money. The second thing is we have to enlist community level actors and actions. To the extent that government is unable to do a lot of the traditional heavy lifting that it has done, it will be incumbent upon us, as well as community level organizations, to pick up some of this. And finally, we have to become more inclusive. We have to, as a society, encourage and include non-traditional leaders and people who come from multiple sectors. Now, you're going to be hearing these themes throughout the day. And underlying a lot of this is the role that technology can play. It's really interesting as I've gotten the slides from our speakers, the PowerPoint presentations, and looked at them. And most of these folks, in fact, I don't think any of them sort of knew each other before today or yesterday. They're hitting on a lot of the same themes. Kentucky is actually in pretty good shape, arguably in excellent shape, when it comes to the strength of this state's social capital and community level energy. We have been collecting data now for about a dozen years, a little bit over a dozen years, on telephone research stuff. You know, to what extent are people volunteering, participating in community level organizations? This slide illustrates, the upper slide is the percentage of Kentucky adults who have participated in an organized or group activity to help their community. About half of them have. And around 10 to 13% over the years have actually been involved in organizing this. If you look at the percent of Kentuckians who volunteer, it's right about 90%, or make charitable donations is at about 90%. About 2/3 volunteer. And then finally, Kentucky compared to the U.S., there was an author a few years ago, Frank Fukuyama, who came out, more than a few years ago now, probably about 10 or 12 years ago, with a book on trust and how important trust is to the social fabric of a community. And he was talking and writing about it in terms of becoming economically strong. Well, so we got interested in this and began collecting these data. What you find is, the basic question is the following. Do you trust others, or are you wary of others? And it's striking. The percentage of Kentuckians who say that they trust others over the years has ranged from 55 to 60%. Nationally, it's been between 32 and 34%. So to the extent that Frank Fukuyama is correct, and that trust is an important element that will lead to a strong economy, and I think he is correct, and a lot of community level volunteer activity, then Kentucky is well positioned to take advantage of some of that.